students, I am Sandhya Chauhan, working as an assistant professor in Noida Institute of Engineering and Technology, Pharmacy Institute, Greater Noida. And today's topic is ICH guidelines. So, let us get started. The International Conference on Harmonization of Technical Requirement for the registration of pharmaceuticals for human use. It is a unique project that brings together the regulatory authorities of Europe, Japan and the United States and experts from the pharmaceutical industries in the three regions to discuss scientific and technical aspect of product registration. Okay. So, ICH gives common guidelines for the registration of product in Europe, Japan and United States. So, that is how it reduces the unnecessary testing or unnecessary submission of data. Okay. Now, what is the purpose of ICH guideline? Okay. So, to make recommendation towards achieving greater harmonization in the interpretation and application of technical guideline and requirements for pharmaceutical product registration and the maintenance of such registration. Okay. So, in simple word, what is the purpose of ICH guideline? Its main purpose is harmonization of technical requirement. That means, it gives some common guideline for stability of drug product, stability testing of drug product and for safety testing of drug product. So, that is how it reduces the unnecessary testing of drug substances and drug product. Okay. Next is to maintain a forum for a constructive dialogue on scientific issues between regulatory authorities and the pharmaceutical industries on the harmonization of the technical requirement for pharmaceutical product to contribute to the protection of public health. Since ICH gives guideline for stability testing, for quality testing, for safety, for efficacy. So, that means it contribute to protection of public health. It contribute to give a safe and effective product. Okay. Next is to monitor and update harmonized technical requirement leading to a greater mutual acceptance of research and development data, to avoid divergent future requirements through harmonization of selected topics needed as a result of therapeutic advances and the development of new technologies for the production of medicinal products. To facilitate the adoption of new or improved technical research and development approaches which update or replace current practice, to encourage the adequate implementation and integration of common standards through the dissemination of the communication of information about the coordination of training on harmonized guideline and their use, and to develop policy for ICH medical dictionary for regulatory activities terminology while ensuring the scientific and technical maintenance, development and dissemination of medical DRA as standardized dictionary which facilitate the sharing of regulatory information internationally for medicinal product used by human. Okay. So, for registration of product we need certain terminology. Okay. So, these terminology are given by ICH and it really helpful in the registration of pharmaceutical product. Now, what is the process of harmonization? Okay. So, ICH harmonization process has 4 categories. Okay. First is formal ICH procedure, second is QA procedure, Q&A procedure, revision procedure and maintenance procedure. Okay. Now, here are the steps of ICH guideline harmonization. Okay. So, step 1 is consensus building of technical document. Okay. So, here the expert working group communicate with each other, okay, for developing a guideline or for preparing a draft of guideline. Okay. And after preparing a draft, the draft undergo review several times. Okay. Then the final draft is reached to the expert group of steering committee. Okay. So, what happens in step 2? ICH parties consensus on technical document. Okay. So, ICH parties or the member of ICH steering committee reviews or check the draft document. Okay. And then this draft document is proceed for draft guideline adoption by regulators. Okay. Then in step 3 the regulatory consultation and discussion begins. Okay. So, here the expert working group or the expert from different from the steering committee or the representatives of the member countries initiate consultation on the draft document and they comment on the guideline or they suggest if any changes needed. Okay. Then in step 4 the draft or the guideline is reached for adoption of an ICH harmonized guideline, and in step 5 the guideline is finally implemented and it is available for the use. Okay. Now, let us take a look in on step 1 in detail. Okay. So, in this step the expert working group works to prepare a consensus draft of the technical document based on the objective set out in the concept paper. Okay. Work is conducted by email, teleconferences and web conferences. Okay. So, through these means the expert working group share their scientific views and prepare a draft. Okay. So, if advised by ICH management committee, the expert working group will also meet face to face for further discussion in the biannual meeting, and interim reports on the progress of the drafts are made to the assembly on a regular basis. When consensus on the draft is reached within the EWG, that is expert working group, the technical expert of the expert working group will sign the step 1. Okay. So, the step 1 expert sign off the sheet and the step 1 experts technical document with expert working group's signature is then submitted to the assembly to request adoption under step 2 of the ICH process. Now, what happens in step 2? Okay, step 2 is divided in two parts, step 2A and step 2B. Okay. So, in step 2A, confirmation of consensus on the technical document. Okay. So, step 2 is reached when the assembly agrees based on the report of the expert working group that there is sufficient scientific consensus on the technical issues for the technical document to proceed to the next stage of regulatory consultation. Okay. So, after completing step 2A, the document enters step 2B part. Okay. So, here adoption of draft guideline by regulatory members takes place. Okay. So, on the basis of the technical document, the ICH regulatory members will take the action they deem necessary to develop the draft guideline. Okay. So, step 2B is reached when the regulatory members endorse the draft guideline. Okay. So, the regulatory members are representative of 6 parties. Okay. So, ICH has 6 parties. Okay. So, each country has 2 parties. Okay. For example, Japan has 2 parties. Okay. First is the Ministry of Health, Labour and Welfare. Okay. And the second party is Japan Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Association. Okay. So, there these two are representatives of ICH regulatory committee or ICH steering committee, and same as Europe has 2 representative and USA has 2 representatives. Okay. USA Food and Drug Administration and the Pharmaceutical Manufacturer Association of America. Okay. So, next is step 3. Okay. So, step 3 is regulatory consultation and discussion. Okay. So, in step 3 occurs in 3 distinct stages. Okay. First stage is regulatory consultation. Okay. So, the members of regulatory group share their scientific view on the draft guideline. Suppose if they want any changes or there is any changes required, then they put their views, okay, and then they discuss about the changes, they discuss about the guideline and the finalization of step 3 expert draft guideline. Okay. So, after consultation, after discussion, they finally finalize the draft guideline. Okay. So, in stage 1, regional regulatory consultation, the guideline embodying the scientific consensus leaves the ICH process and becomes the subject of normal wide ranging regulatory consultation in the ICH region. Regulatory authorities and the industry association in the other regions may also comment on the draft consultation document by providing their comments to the ICH secretariat. Okay. Now, stage 2. Okay. So, in stage 2, what happens? Discussion of regional consultation comments. Okay. So, after obtaining all comments from the consultation process, the expert working group works to address the comments, okay, received and reach consensus on what is called the step 3 expert draft guideline. Okay. In stage 3, finalization of step 3 expert draft guideline. Okay. After due consideration of the consultation results by the expert working group, consensus is reached and amongst the expert on a revised version of the step 2B draft guideline, the step 3 expert draft guideline is signed by the expert of the ICH regulatory member. The step 3 expert draft guideline with regulatory expert working group signature is submitted to regulatory members of the assembly to request adoption as step 4 of the ICH process. Now, step 4. Okay. So, adoption of ICH harmonized guideline. Okay. Step 4 is reached when the assembly agrees that there is sufficient consensus on the draft guideline. Okay. The step 4 final document is adopted by the ICH regulatory members of the ICH assembly as an ICH harmonized guideline at step 4 of the ICH process. Okay. So, after consensus building, after discussion, after consultation, after receiving the comments from experts, the draft guideline finally reaches step 4 for the adoption of an ICH harmonized guideline. Okay. So, here the assembly agrees that the draft has sufficient scientific evidence. Okay. It has sufficient data, okay, sufficient consensus, and this document can be adopted by the ICH regulatory members. Okay. Next is implementation. Okay. So, in this step the harmonized guideline moves immediately to the final step of the process, that is regulatory implementation. That means in this, after this step, after completion of this step, the guideline is available for use. Any organization, any company who wants to manufacture a product can use this guideline. Okay. So, this step is carried out according to the same national regional procedures that apply to other regional regulatory guideline and requirement in the ICH region. Okay. So, these are the steps for formation of ICH draft guideline or ICH for preparing draft guideline and for finalizing a guideline. Okay. Thank you.